Dr. Sarah Chen first noticed something was wrong when her quantum computer started producing impossible readings. The qubits were maintaining coherence far longer than they should have, defying the laws of physics themselves. She might have celebrated this breakthrough, if not for the growing sense of dread in her stomach. Through the windows of her laboratory at CE Arnon, the Geneva sky had taken on an otherworldly purple hue. The crystalline structures had appeared 3 hours ago, massive geometric shapes that hung in the atmosphere like frozen lightning. The scientific community had barely begun to analyze them when the first power grid started failing. Dr. Chen, her assistant Marco, burst through the door, tablet in hand. The particle accelerator, its exceeding containment parameters. Sarah was already moving, her fingers flying across the keyboard. The quantum computer's display showed energy readings that shouldn't exist in our universe. "They're drawing power," she whispered, "not just from our systems, but from the fundamental forces themselves." The lights flickered and died. In the darkness, Sarah could see the crystal ships glowing brighter. Across the globe, the pattern repeated. New Delhi's fusion research facility went dark. The Quantum Research Center in Shanghai ceased all operations. Every major power plant, from nuclear to solar, began experiencing catastrophic failures. But it wasn't just large power sources. Cars stopped working. Phones died. Even batteries seemed to lose their charge almost instantly. Within 24 hours, humanity had been thrust back into the pre-industrial age. Almost. In a hidden bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Diana Martinez watched the last functioning military screens through narrowed eyes. They'd managed to keep some equipment running using heavily shielded facilities, but it wouldn't last long. "Report," she commanded. Colonel James Wilson stepped forward, his face illuminated by the dim emergency lighting. "The crystalline entities are now present over every major population center. Our initial attempts at communication have failed. Nuclear launches were ineffective. The warheads simply disintegrated before impact, their energy apparently absorbed by the crystals. And the civilians. Panic in most urban areas, but..." Wilson paused, a hint of pride in his voice. "People are adapting. Communities are organizing. Humans are doing what we do best, surviving." Martinez nodded. She'd seen it herself. While some waited for rescue, others were already creating new solutions. Mechanical engines were being retrofitted. Old telegraph lines were being repaired. Humanity was refusing to go quietly into the dark. In Boston, MIT professor David Onakwu had gathered a group of engineering students in a Faraday-shielded basement. They'd been working nonstop, trying to understand their enemy through the limited data they could gather. "Look at this pattern," David said, pointing to a hand-drawn graph. "The crystals don't just absorb energy. They transform it. But the process isn't perfect. There's a resonance frequency." Before he could finish, the ground shook. Above them, one of the crystal ships had descended lower than ever before. Through the basement's small window, they could see its surface shifting, facets realigning like a kaleidoscope of frozen starlight. Something emerged from the crystal. Not a being, exactly, but a field of pure force that swept through the city. Where it passed, every piece of technology older than the steam age simply dissolved into dust. "They're not just disabling our technology," Sarah Chen would later write in her journal, documenting humanity's darkest hour. "They're trying to ensure we can never rebuild it. This isn't an invasion. It's an extinction event. They want to end our technological civilization permanently." But the aliens had made a crucial mistake. They assumed that without our technology, we would be helpless. They didn't understand that human ingenuity isn't stored in our devices, but in our minds. They didn't realize that by pushing us to the brink, they would unlock something far more dangerous than any weapon: human determination. In her quantum lab, now lit only by candles, Sarah Chen made a discovery that would change everything. The same principles that had made her quantum computer malfunction, just before the invasion could be reversed. The crystalline entities weren't just absorbing energy. They were processing it through structures eerily similar to quantum circuits. "They're not invincible," she whispered, watching the candlelight flicker across her calculations. "They're computers. Incredibly advanced, yes, but still bound by the same quantum limitations we are. And every computer can be hacked." As the purple light of the alien crystals painted shadows across the ruins of human civilization, the first seeds of resistance were being planted. In hidden places, protected from the energy-draining fields, humans began to gather. Scientists, engineers, soldiers, and civilians, all united by a single purpose. The aliens had taken our technology, thinking it would break us. Instead, they had given us something far more powerful, a reason to prove them wrong. As Sarah Chen wrote in what would become the rebellion's first manifesto, they thought they could silence human progress. They're about to learn that innovation isn't just what we create, it's who we are. 3 weeks after the invasion, humanity discovered its first real weapon against the crystalline entities. It came from an unlikely source, a teenage girl in rural Montana who still played with crystal radio sets. Emma Reeves had been trying to contact anyone she could with her grandfather's old equipment when she noticed something strange. Every time she tuned to a specific frequency, the nearest crystal ship would shudder almost imperceptibly. She might have missed it if she hadn't been watching the alien construct for hours, documenting its movements in her notebook. The information made its way through the new underground network, passed by word of mouth, carried by cyclists and runners who had become the world's new communication system. When it reached Sarah Chen's team at CERN, it was the confirmation they needed. "The girl's right," Sarah announced to the assembled group of scientists working by lamplight. "These entities process energy through quantum mechanisms. Just like our computers can be disrupted by specific electromagnetic frequencies, they have vulnerabilities too. We just need to find the right resonance." In the Rocky Mountain bunker, General Martinez received the news with cautious optimism. "Can we weaponize this?" "Better," Colonel Wilson replied, spreading out a map marked with hand-drawn symbols. "We can turn their own energy consumption against them. Every Tesla coil, every radio tower we still have, they can all become part of a worldwide disruption network." The next month saw humanity's greatest cooperative effort since the space race. Communities worldwide began secretly constructing modified Tesla coils using salvaged materials. Old radio towers were retrofitted with new resonators designed by Sarah's team. The work had to be done carefully, mechanically, without modern tools that would attract the aliens' attention. In Boston, David Onakwu and his students had transformed their basement into a workshop where they built primitive but effective electromagnetic pulse generators. "The crystals feed on electrical energy," he explained to new recruits, "but like any system, they have limits. Feed them the wrong frequency with enough power." He didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone had seen the prototype test, where a small crystal sample had shattered into dust. The resistance faced constant challenges. The aliens seemed to sense when large amounts of electrical components were gathered in one place. Their energy-draining fields would sweep through areas randomly, destroying anything more advanced than simple machines. The humans learned to adapt, keeping their components separated, moving their workshops frequently, using mechanical power where possible. Sarah Chen worked tirelessly to refine the resonance frequency calculations. "It's not just about finding the right frequency," she explained to her international team, now connected through a network of Morse code and mirror signals. "We need to understand their quantum structure. Every time we hit them with a disruption field, they adapt. We need to stay ahead of their evolution." In India, Dr. Priya Patel made a crucial breakthrough while studying debris from a destroyed crystal ship. "These aren't just ships," she reported through the Resistance's paper-based communication network. "They're like living crystals. They grow, adapt, and reproduce using absorbed energy. But this also means they're vulnerable to systemic attacks. Hit one with the right frequency, and they all feel it." The aliens weren't idle during this time. Their ships descended lower, their energy-draining fields becoming more aggressive. They began targeting not just technology, but any concentrated source of electrical energy, including human settlements. People learned to live in smaller groups, to avoid using any power sources that might attract attention. But humanity had an advantage the crystals hadn't counted on: our diversity. While they operated as a single crystalline network, humans worked in countless small, independent groups. When one resistance cell was discovered and destroyed, others continued the work. The aliens couldn't predict where the next threat would come from because every human group approached the problem differently. Emma Reeves, whose discovery had started it all, worked with local ham radio operators to create a detection network. They could now track the crystalline entity's movements and warn communities in advance. More importantly, they could observe how the aliens responded to different frequencies. They're not just feeding on energy, Emma noted in a journal that would later become famous. They're trying to understand us. Every time they destroy our technology, they absorb not just its power but its patterns. They think they're learning about humanity, but they're only seeing our tools, not our minds. In the bunker, General Martinez received reports from around the world. The resistance was growing stronger. The network of Tesla coils and modified radio towers was nearly complete. They had even managed to restore some military equipment, carefully shielded and hidden underground. "We'll only get one shot at this," she told her staff. "Once we activate the network, they'll know what we're capable of. We need to make it count." Sarah Chen's voice crackled over a carefully shielded radio, broadcasting on a frequency the aliens had never encountered. "The quantum resonance calculations are complete. We found their fundamental frequency, the one they can't adapt to without destroying their own structure." As humanity prepared for its first coordinated counterattack, Sarah added one final note to her research logs. The crystals thought they were dealing with simple organic beings who depended on their technology. They're about to learn that humanity's greatest technology isn't our machines. It's our ability to turn any situation to our advantage. The morning of humanity's counterattack dawned silent and purple beneath the crystalline ships. In bunkers, basements, and hidden facilities across the globe, people gathered around their makeshift equipment, waiting for the signal. Sarah Chen stood in her lab at C. Arnon, now transformed into a control center for the European resistance. Hand-drawn maps covered the walls, marked with the locations of every modified Tesla coil and radio tower in their network. She checked her mechanical chronometer one final time. "All stations, prepare for synchronized activation." She transmitted through the Resistance's low-frequency communication system. "Remember, we'll only have moments before they adapt. Make them count." In the Rocky Mountain bunker, General Martinez watched as Colonel Wilson coordinated with their global teams using a complex system of Morse code and mechanical switches. "Status report," she commanded. "Asia is ready. Europe is ready. Africa, South America, and North America. All report ready," Wilson confirmed. "Australia reports final calibrations complete." Martinez nodded, her expression grim. "Send the go code." At exactly 700 UTC, humanity struck back. Thousands of modified Tesla coils and radio towers activated simultaneously, each broadcasting the quantum resonance frequency that Sarah's team had discovered. The effect was immediate and devastating. The crystal ships shuddered. Their perfect geometric forms began to vibrate, their surfaces clouding with interference patterns. In Boston, David Onekwu and his students watched through specially designed filters as the nearest ship's crystalline structure began to destabilize. "The frequency is working," David transmitted through their secure channel. "Their quantum matrix is collapsing." But the aliens weren't defeated so easily. The ships began to change, their surfaces morphing to adapt to the attack. Some started to descend, their energy-draining fields intensifying in an attempt to silence the human weapons. "They're trying to adapt." Sarah's voice crackled over the emergency frequencies. "Initiate Phase 2. Emma Reeves, monitoring from her station in Montana, began broadcasting on her crystal radio set. Her frequency, combined with the main attack, created an interference pattern that the aliens couldn't process. Across the globe, other operators followed her lead, each adding their own carefully calculated frequencies to the mix. The crystalline entity's response was dramatic. Their ships began to fragment, pieces of their structure breaking away and dissolving into bright cascades of energy. But as they deteriorated, they launched a desperate counterattack. Beams of concentrated energy lanced down from the dying ships, targeting the human broadcast stations. Tesla coils exploded in brilliant displays of electrical discharge. Radio towers melted and collapsed. The resistance network began to fail. "Keep broadcasting," Martinez ordered as reports of destruction poured in. "We only need to hold them for 5 more minutes." In her lab, Sarah Chen watched her instruments with growing concern. The quantum readings were showing something unexpected. "The ships aren't just breaking apart," she transmitted urgently. "They're changing state. Everyone, prepare for." Her warning was cut short as the sky erupted in light. The crystal ships were transforming, their solid forms dissolving into clouds of energetic particles. These clouds began to coalesce into new shapes, more organic than geometric, but still alien and threatening. "They're evolving," Dr. Patel's voice came through from India. "But this new form, it's unstable. They can't maintain quantum coherence under these conditions." The transformed aliens began to pulse with intense energy, their new forms flickering between states of matter. Each pulse sent waves of disruption through Earth's atmosphere, knocking out what remained of the Resistance's equipment. But humanity had planned for this too. As the primary network failed, a secondary system of purely mechanical devices activated. These simple machines, based on century-old technology, were immune to the aliens' energy manipulation. "Mechanical backup network is online," Wilson reported. 70% of secondary transmitters are functional. The combined assault from both the electronic and mechanical networks proved too much for the crystalline entity's new form. Their energy patterns became increasingly chaotic, their attempts to maintain cohesion failing under the onslaught of human-generated interference. High above Washington, D.C., the first ship completely destabilized. Its energy form dispersed in a spectacular display of light and color, harmless radiation dispersing into the upper atmosphere. Around the world, other ships followed, their carefully maintained quantum structures collapsing under the sustained attack. But victory came at a heavy cost. Nearly 60% of the Resistance's broadcasting network was destroyed. Thousands of people had died defending their stations or reaching critical transmitters. The aliens' final energy pulses had leveled cities and scorched vast areas of Earth's surface. As the last crystal ship dissolved into the dawn sky, Sarah Chen made a final entry in her journal. "We've won this battle, but at a terrible price. More importantly, we've learned something about ourselves. Humanity's strength isn't in our technology or our weapons. It's in our ability to face the impossible and find a way forward. The crystals thought they could defeat us by taking away our tools. Instead, they taught us that our greatest tool is our unbreakable spirit." But even as humanity began to celebrate their victory, Sarah's instruments detected something troubling. The dispersed energy from the destroyed ships wasn't dissipating as expected. Instead, it was beginning to gather in Earth's magnetosphere, creating patterns that reminded her of the original crystal ships. The war, she realized, was far from over. It was about to enter a new phase, one that would challenge humanity in ways they had never imagined. The celebration of humanity's victory lasted exactly 6 hours before Sarah Chen's urgent message reached the Rocky Mountain bunker. "The energy signatures are converging on Earth's magnetic poles. They're not defeated. They're evolving." Dr. Priya Patel's data from Mumbai confirmed Sarah's findings. The dispersed crystal entities weren't dying. They were merging with Earth's magnetosphere. Each pulse of energy was synchronizing with the planet's magnetic field, creating patterns that grew more complex by the hour. In the bunker's command center, General Martinez studied the hand-drawn magnetic field maps her team had assembled. "How long?" she asked Colonel Wilson. "At current rates of convergence, 48 hours before they achieve full integration with Earth's magnetic field," he replied, his voice grim. Once that happens, he didn't need to finish. Everyone had seen the simulations. The crystals weren't just trying to control Earth's technology. They were attempting to harvest the planet's entire electromagnetic field. If they succeeded, they would strip Earth of its magnetic protection, leaving it vulnerable to solar radiation and cosmic rays. David Onukwu and his students in Boston had discovered something even more alarming. The crystal entities aren't just parasites, he reported through the Resistance Network. They're terraformers. They transform planets into massive energy collectors, converting entire worlds into crystalline structures that feed their species. Emma Reeves, still monitoring from her Montana station, detected new patterns in the magnetic disturbances. "They're communicating," she transmitted. "The energy pulses. They're calling for something." Sarah Chen worked frantically in her lab, trying to understand the aliens' new strategy. The quantum readings were unlike anything she'd seen before. The crystalline consciousness was spreading through Earth's magnetic field like a virus through a neural network. "They're using our own planet's energy against us," she realized. "Every attempt we make to disrupt them strengthens their connection to the magnetic field. Our previous weapons are useless now." But humanity had learned from its first encounter with the crystal entities. Instead of panicking, the Global Resistance Network mobilized. Scientists shared theories across continents using their rebuilt communication systems. Engineers developed and tested new countermeasures. Every failure brought new insights. Dr. Patel made the crucial breakthrough while studying the magnetic anomalies forming over the Indian Ocean. "The crystals aren't just merging with our magnetic field," she reported. "They're trying to synchronize with Earth's core dynamo, the source of our planet's magnetism. But there's a flaw in their approach." She explained that the aliens' crystalline nature made them vulnerable to thermal disruption. While they could process and control electromagnetic energy perfectly, they couldn't handle the chaotic thermal energy from Earth's core. "We don't need to fight them with electromagnetic weapons," she concluded. "We need to force them to confront Earth's geothermal power directly." The plan that emerged was audacious. Using a network of deep Earth probes and repurposed drilling equipment, humanity would attempt to channel the planet's thermal energy into the magnetic field where the crystals were gathering. It was dangerous. Any mistake could trigger devastating earthquakes or volcanic eruptions. Sarah Chen and her team worked to calculate the precise locations where the thermal energy would have the most impact. "We'll only get one chance," she warned. "If we fail, the crystal consciousness will adapt and complete its integration with the magnetic field." Around the world, teams began positioning equipment at critical geological hotspots. The work was grueling and dangerous. Several teams were lost to sudden magnetic storms as the crystals lashed out, sensing the threat. Emma Reeves discovered she could predict these storms by monitoring certain frequencies. Her warning system saved countless lives as the resistance raced to complete their preparations. "They're afraid," she noted in her transmissions. "For the first time, the crystals are showing fear." In the Rocky Mountain bunker, General Martinez coordinated the global effort. The plan would require perfect timing. Every thermal tap would need to activate simultaneously to overcome the crystal's adaptive capabilities. "This isn't just about saving our technology anymore," she told her staff. "This is about saving Earth itself. Everything we are, everything we've built, depends on our planet's magnetic field. We cannot let them take it." As the final hours approached, Sarah Chen made a discovery that both terrified and inspired her. The crystals weren't just trying to harvest Earth's magnetism. They were trying to understand it. In their own alien way, they were conducting research, learning about a power they had never encountered before. "They chose Earth because we're unique," she realized. "Our planet's magnetic dynamo is special, more powerful and stable than anything they've encountered. They came here not just to feed, but to learn." And that's why they'll fail. Because no one understands Earth better than its own children. With 12 hours remaining before the crystal consciousness would achieve full integration, humanity prepared to launch its most daring defense yet. They would use their planet itself as a weapon, turning the very forces that had shaped Earth against the beings trying to steal its power. As teams took their positions at geothermal sites worldwide, Sarah Chen transmitted one final message through the resistance network. The crystals thought they could understand and control Earth's power in a matter of days. We've spent millions of years evolving with these forces, learning to live in harmony with them. Now it's time to show these invaders why Earth belongs to us. The final hour of humanity's battle for Earth began in darkness. The crystalline consciousness, now spread throughout the magnetosphere, had created auroras that blazed across the sky in impossible colors, casting otherworldly shadows across every continent. In her reinforced laboratory, Sarah Chen made the last adjustments to her quantum monitoring equipment. The alien's energy signature had almost completely merged with Earth's magnetic field. In less than 60 minutes, the integration would become irreversible. All stations, report status. General Martinez's voice crackled through the Resistance's remaining communication network. The responses came in from around the world. Teams positioned at geothermal hotspots, ready to channel Earth's core energy into the magnetosphere. Each site represented humanity's last hope, a final gambit to save their world. Yellowstone team ready. Iceland team ready. Ring of Fire stations all ready. African Rift Valley ready. Emma Reeves, monitoring the magnetic disturbances from her station, detected a change in the pattern. They know, she transmitted urgently. The crystal consciousness. It's reacting to our preparations. The sky erupted with intense electromagnetic activity. The crystalline entities, now existing as pure energy within Earth's magnetic field, launched a desperate attack. Power surges destroyed equipment. Magnetic pulses disrupted communications, and focused energy beams targeted key resistance positions. But humanity had prepared for this. Their most critical systems were protected by Faraday cages and mechanical backups. Teams had trained to operate even if completely cut off from the network. They knew what needed to be done. All stations, commence thermal tapping, Martins ordered. Execute Protocol Phoenix. Around the world, deep Earth probes activated simultaneously, boring into carefully selected geological weak points. The technology was primitive by modern standards, simple mechanical devices designed to channel the planet's natural thermal energy. But they didn't need to be sophisticated. They just needed to work once. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. Superheated plasma from Earth's outer core surged through the channels humanity had created, forcing its way into the magnetosphere. The crystalline consciousness recoiled from the chaotic thermal energy, its perfectly ordered quantum structure unable to process the raw, primal power of the planet's core. It's working. Dr. Patel transmitted from her station near the Indian Ocean. The crystal matrix is destabilizing. But she paused, her instruments showing something unexpected. The magnetic field. It's fluctuating beyond predicted parameters. Sarah Chen saw it too. The interaction between the thermal energy and the crystal consciousness was creating a cascading reaction in Earth's magnetic field. If they didn't control it soon, they might save Earth from the aliens only to destroy it themselves. We need to modulate the thermal flow, she broadcast. Emma, can you still read the crystal frequencies? Yes. Emma's voice came through clearly despite the electromagnetic chaos. They're trying to establish a new resonance pattern. I'm sending you the frequencies now. Sarah worked frantically, correlating Emma's data with the magnetic field fluctuations. There was a pattern there, a way to use the crystal's own energy processing abilities to stabilize the reaction. All stations, adjust your thermal taps to match the frequencies I'm sending, she transmitted. We're going to use their quantum processing to channel the core energy safely. It was a desperate gamble, but it was all they had. As teams around the world adjusted their equipment, The crystal consciousness found itself caught in a trap of its own making. It could either process the thermal energy in the way humanity was directing, or risk complete destruction. The aliens chose survival. Their consciousness, now forced into harmony with Earth's natural energy flow, began to change. The rigid, crystalline patterns that had defined their existence started to evolve into something new, something that could exist in balance with Earth's magnetic field rather than consuming it. David Onuku, monitoring from Boston, was the first to understand what was happening. "They're not just being destroyed," he reported, excitement clear in his voice. "They're being transformed. The thermal energy. It's rewriting their basic structure." The sky blazed with light as the crystal consciousness underwent its final metamorphosis. When it was over, Earth's magnetic field had been transformed. The aliens' energy processing capabilities had been integrated into the planet's natural systems, creating a hybrid field that was stronger than either would have been alone. Sarah Chen studied the readings with amazement. "They wanted to understand Earth's power," she wrote in her final report. "In the end, they became part of it. Their consciousness still exists within our magnetosphere, but now it works with our planet instead of trying to consume it." As the new dawn broke over a changed Earth, humanity began to understand the full scope of what they had achieved. They hadn't just survived an alien invasion. They had forced an advanced species to evolve, to adapt to Earth rather than destroying it. Emma Reeves, listening to the newly harmonized frequencies of Earth's enhanced magnetic field, sent one final transmission. "They came to teach us our place in the universe. Instead, we taught them something about evolution. Sometimes the best way to survive isn't to conquer or consume. It's to change, to find balance, to become part of something greater than yourself." In the months that followed, humanity began to rebuild. The transformed magnetic field provided new possibilities for energy generation and communication. The crystal consciousness, now eternally bound to Earth, shared its understanding of quantum mechanics and energy manipulation, helping humanity advance in ways they had never imagined. But more importantly, the invasion had taught humanity something about itself. In their darkest hour, when faced with an enemy that threatened not just their civilization but their very planet, they had prevailed not through superior firepower or advanced technology, but through their uniquely human qualities: adaptability, creativity, and the ability to turn enemies into allies. As Sarah Chen wrote in the epilogue of her book about the invasion, "The crystals came seeking to harvest Earth's power. In the end, they discovered that Earth's greatest power isn't in its magnetic field or its core. It's in the indomitable spirit of the species that calls this planet home. We are humanity. We don't just survive. We transform our challenges into opportunities. And now, the stars themselves will hear our story."